Part 74. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 731. Chapter 731 Refining the Magic Medicine. Yuan entered a big city and bought some magical medicine seeds. However, these medicinal seeds were not enough and incomplete, so she went to more than a dozen cities before reluctantly buying all low and mid-level magic medicine seeds. It is still impossible to buy a high-level magic medicine seed. Yuan lamented that this divine world was similar to the fairy world and the spiritual world. No one wanted to sell the same high-level medicine. High-end medicinal seeds are treasured everywhere. Mainly where high-end medicinal materials are scarce, medicinal seeds are even rarer. Most of the high-end medicinal seeds received are grown by oneself or kept for one's own use, and will not be sold. Only when you encounter someone who wants to exchange high-level medicine seeds, but the probability of encountering that situation is too low. Yuan had no choice but to waste time if she couldn't buy it. She thought that with the divine power in the space, she could cultivate the high-level magic medicine by herself, but it just took a long time. But it doesn't matter. After becoming a god, the lifespan of a can be said to be infinite. In addition, space has time acceleration, so she can afford to wait. Yuan left the city, found a place to enter the space, and then returned to the divine tower through the boundary gate. Yuan did not come out of the space immediately, but planted all the magical medicine seeds she bought into the red soil in the space. After planting the seeds, she took a look at the magic medicine. At this time, inside the barrier, it seemed like a small village again, just like the small village in the secret realm, except that the creek was missing. Dozens of children and adults were working in the fields. Yuan took a closer look at what they were planting, and she was very happy to see that what they planted in the ground turned out to be magical seeds. Yuan felt very strange. Did they produce their own seeds? Still planning to be self-sufficient? Yuan thought, wait until their seeds sprout to see what kind of magic medicine they have. In the future, she probably won't send any magic medicine seeds. These magic medicines can help her grow them. Yuan he, I never thought there would be such a surprise for her. Yuan looked outside the barrier for a long time, but she never saw the true form of the magical medicines. She didn't give up, and looked over and over again with her divine eyes, but she still couldn't see their true form. His wish for Ming Xiao to recover quickly failed. Yuan sighed deeply and left the space. Yuan was no longer in a hurry to enter the pagoda after that, because Yao Ji was about to give birth and had to wait until she gave birth before entering. How many sacred stones are wasted by going in and out, not to mention that it is not suitable for her to advance to the level of cultivation now, so she should settle outside for a while. She is safe in the space anyway. So Yuan prepared to refine elixirs. She had not refined elixirs once since she was promoted to a god. Firstly, there was no magic medicine, and secondly, she had elixirs to take, so she kept them like this. She also wanted to wait until the alchemy was completed before practicing the restraints and formations. Having restored the memory of the god realm, she could remember all the memories about the formations. She had to be proficient in them, especially those in the star formation. Yuan sorted out all the magical medicines that she had collected in Red Earth. These magical medicines can be used to make elixirs. However, Yuan collected some of the first-level magic medicine in the black soil first. These can be used to practice first. It would be a pity to waste even one of the miraculous medicines in the black soil. When everything is ready, Yuan starts the stove. The first time I made the magic medicine, it turned out not to be that easy to make. Yuan wasted a lot of magic medicine before successfully refining it. Only after she had refined all the first-level magic pills and found no problems, did she use the magic medicine in the black soil to refine the first-level magic medicine. After refining the first-level magical elixir, Yuan learned to refine the second-level magical elixir. The second order Shendan's magic medicine can still be uniform, and Yuan has been refined in one breath. But when refining the third level magic elixir, there was not enough magic medicine. Yuan could only gather the magic medicine for the healing elixir and refine it. But this is already very good. The healing pill is better than anything else. This is a magic pill that is often needed. After Yuan Jiang practiced many healing pills and placed them in the space, he left the space. They don't use much of the first and second level magic elixirs now, so she went out and sold them all in the market of the Divine Tower and replaced them with sacred stones. The sacred stones can't be taken out or in, nor can they be spent. The exchange of these sacred stones is enough for her to enter the sacred tower several times. Yuan happily walked around Xiafang market, bought some things for the baby, and then returned to the space. In addition to polishing and cultivating every day, I also take care of the magic medicine. By the way, steal the magic medicine grown by the humanoid magic medicine people in the barrier. Huh, is this the concentrating flower? On this day, Yuan saw a few seedlings of Ningxinhua among the magical seedlings she had stolen. She felt happy and hurriedly moved to Han Mountain. There is not much soul power in it, and the seedlings grow wilted. After planting, the seedlings were completely different, and they were full of energy within a day. Yuan felt relieved now and thought about the concentration flower for Qingyuan and Su Yang, now that she had it. As long as they can hold on until the concentration flower matures. With this kind of medicine, the days of cultivation will last more than 1,000 years. It's also time for Yaoji to give birth. That day, Yuan was still taking care of the few concentration flowers in the medicinal field, when she heard Tianyan calling her. Yuan's consciousness flashed over immediately, and by that time, Yaoji had already had a seizure. Monks give birth to children in the same way as mortals, except that monks have miraculous medicine to save their lives, and their bodies are stronger than mortals, so they rarely lose their lives due to childbirth. Yuan prepared everything and then called Xiaoqing to help deliver the baby. Yaoji refused to let her deliver the baby. She said that no daughter would be so embarrassed to deliver the baby for her mother. Yuan was speechless. Her mother was very particular about having children. Xiaoqing was the only woman in the room. Yuan had no choice but to call her over. "Wire, please go out, mother is about to give birth." Yaoji exhaled a few breaths and said to Yuan. "Okay then, can you let dad come in?" "No, you just wait outside. It's not like my mother has never given birth, so don't worry." Yaoji took a few breaths and said again. "Okay, then my daughter will go out." "Xiaoqing, please pay attention. If anything goes wrong, call me immediately. Do you hear me?" Yuan warned Xiaoqing again when she came out. "Don't worry, master, I won't let anything happen to your mother." Xiaoqing nodded. "Okay, then I'm going out." Yuan came out and closed the door. After a while, there was a barrier covering the inside. "Wire, why did you come out?" Tianyan asked in confusion. Yuan said, "Mother said there is no daughter who can deliver the baby for me." Tianyan touched his forehead, he really wanted to break in. Mingxiao grabbed him and said, "If you don't want you to go in, don't make trouble." Mingxiao took the condensing flower and cultivated a divine soul body, and his strength returned to that of a divine king. He was overjoyed and surprised when his grandson was born. Tianyan stared at the barrier, but did not break in after all. The three of them were walking around and waiting outside, but there was no movement for an hour. "Dad, don't worry, it won't be that fast." Yuan grabbed Tianyan, who was about to rush in again. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 732. Chapter 732. Yaoji's birth. It has only been more than an hour, how can it be so fast to give birth to a child? When she gave birth to 2 babies, it took a day and a night to give birth. It's too torturous, Wei-er. Let go of Dad and let him in. Tianyan was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. He was so anxious that he almost begged in his tone. Okay, go in. Yuan couldn't stand Tianyan's pleading eyes. There was his wife and her mother. Indeed, both father and daughter couldn't let go. Yuan couldn't care less about whether her mother was willing or not. There was nothing embarrassing about a woman giving birth. She nodded and agreed to let Tianyan in. Without the restraints of his daughter, Tianyan drew directly towards the barrier. A gap appeared, and he immediately dodged in. Yuan and Mingxiao breathed a long sigh of relief, while their grandfather and grandson waited anxiously outside. An hour after Tianyan entered, the barrier suddenly withdrew, and soon the sound of a baby crying could be heard. "Grandpa, my mother has given birth," Yuan shouted in surprise. "Yes, your mother has given birth. Girl, please go in and have a look." Mingxiao was not ready to go in yet, so he asked Yuan to go in first and take a look. Yuan nodded and rushed into the room. There is no smell of blood in the room anymore. Yaoji has fallen asleep. Tianyan is sitting on the bedside with the child in his arms and looking at Yaoji, while Xiaoqing is preparing to go out. "Master, my mother is very good, don't worry, Master, I will go take care of things right now." Xiaoqing saw Yuan coming in and said to her hurriedly. Yuan nodded and said, "Okay, then you can go, thank you Xiaoqing." Xiaoqing waved her hands and went out. "Dad, how are you, Mom? Give me a hug, little brother." After Xiaoqing left, Yuan immediately walked to the bed and said to Tianyan. Tianyan took one look at her and immediately put the baby in Yuan's arms. That look in his eyes was full of disgust. Yuan curled her lips. Why was his father so virtuous? His wife was more important than his children, and the children were just like a drag. I wonder if her father was like this when he gave birth to her. Yuan came out with the baby in her arms, knowing that Mingxiao had been waiting for a long time. Sure enough, Mingxiao saw her coming out, and he immediately came forward to hug the baby in Yuan's arms. "Come, give Grandpa a hug. Grandpa has never hugged you. I knew when your grandma gave birth to your mother, but that Mingao you just gave me a look, and Grandpa couldn't hug your mother even if he wanted to. Now it's better, Grandpa can hug you as much as you want." Mingxiao said with tears in his eyes. Yuan comforted him, "Grandpa, don't think about the past. From now on, I will capture Mingao for you, and you can do whatever you want with him." "Not yet, Mingao's space magic is too powerful, space may not be able to trap him, and the prison may not be able to trap him either." Sure enough, Mingxiao was very happy after hearing this. He chuckled a few times. "Yeah, Grandpa is fine. Again, girl, don't think Grandpa is verbose. It's better not to confront him before you have the strength. That kind of person, it's too dangerous." Even after so many years, Grandpa didn't know what kind of harm he had done. Yuan nodded. "Grandpa, I don't have to worry about this, otherwise I will put him into the space now, and you can torture him as much as you want, and you can't let him run rampant outside. It's good to know. Your mother is still asleep now. You go to the forest to find the mythical beast that breastfeeds and get some milk. I'm afraid this kid will want to eat it." Mingxiao looked at the smacking little mouth of the baby in his arms, probably because he was hungry. Yuan stepped forward and took a look. The young man now had his eyes open, smashing and smacking his lips, as if he wanted to eat. She pinched the baby's face. Children born to monks are different from children born to ordinary people. Children born to ordinary people are red, wrinkled and ugly. The little guy her mother gave birth to was white, tender, and not very handsome. It didn't look like a child that had just been born. "Brother, be good, sister, go get you something to eat." As she said that, Yuan still chirped on the little baby's face. Then Yuan's consciousness moved and she came to the forest, and then she released her consciousness to search for the suckling beasts. Not long after, Yuan found a wolverine. She went over and squeezed a bowl of it before coming back. Yuan looked at the bottle and saw that there was no bottle left. The one used by the two babies had been thrown away long ago. However, this matter was not simple. She directly asked Xiaojie to search the earth and picked up a dozen milk bottles and milk powder from a high-end shopping mall in the beautiful country. This milk powder is something from the secular world. When I don't have anything to eat, it's okay to use it to pad my stomach. Yuan cleaned the bottle and filled it with milk before giving it to Ming Xiao. Ming Xiao looked at the milk bottle in his hand. It was not a magical artifact. This was the first time he had seen such a common object, and he felt very strange. After Yuan taught him how to use it, Ming Xiao put the pacifier in the baby's mouth. The baby was born on the pacifier. After a while, the baby sucked the pacifier. This thing is very convenient, Ming Xiao couldn't help but said as he saw the baby eating to satisfaction. The corner of Yuan's mouth rose after hearing this, joking. This is the wisdom of the working people of the earth for thousands of years. Milk bottles are nothing. The earth is just a mortal continent. You can fly around in the sky without spiritual power, fairy power, or divine power. Of course, that is airplane. Thinking about the earth, there is still a small amount of spiritual energy on it. I guess it used to be a cultivation planet, but the spiritual energy was exhausted. I just don't know if there are any cultivators left. However, Yuan will not look at it. It is a planet in the age of science and technology, not the age of cultivation. She will not change anything. The baby fell asleep after eating, and Ming Xiao took him back to Han Mountain. Yuan's and Tianyan watched Yaoji wake up. While Yaoji is sleeping, her body is recovering on its own. She woke up 3 days later and her body was back to normal. "Where is your little brother?" Yaoji asked when she woke up and didn't see her son. "Don't worry, mother, I will have food and drink at my grandpa's place. As long as the little snake takes action and a lot of mythical beasts provide milk, Yuan doesn't have to worry about it." "Oh, go and pick it up and show it to your mother. You don't have to run away, little girl, Dad is here." After Yaoji finished speaking, Ming Xiao's voice sounded, and she came to Yaoji in the blink of an eye. "Dad," Yaoji shouted, and then took the baby. "Have you chosen a name yet?" Yaoji asked. "Not yet, you can take it yourself," Ming Xiao said. Yaoji looked at Tianyan, and Tianyan finally remembered. He thought about his original name. He had been called by Taoist names over the years, and he couldn't even remember his original name. Tianyan's original name was Chu Yongziu. He thought about it and said, "Let's call him Chu Ling, and his nickname is Ling Er." "Dad, our surname is Chu." Yuan didn't know their surname was Chu yet. Since she knew there was a name, it was only Ziwei. Tianyan rolled his eyes at her. "Why not? Do you think Dad fell from the sky? Dad also has a father, a mother, and a family." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 733. Chapter 733, First Hearing About the Chu Family. This was the first time Yuan heard her father say that he had relatives and a family. Where is Dad's family? Yuan was very curious and went to take a look when she had the chance. Tianyan glared at her and said, "Wire doesn't want to go and take a look, right? I advise you not to go so as not to cause trouble for them." "Causing trouble? What trouble? Is that old man Ming Ao still staring at you?" Yuan was surprised. The head of the dignified Tiandao sect would do the spying thing? That old man really threatens Dad with his relatives? Yuan thought of Ming Ao's virtue. He was a person with no downlines. What bad things could he not do? This dead old man. But she won't go if her father won't let her go. Is she that obedient? I'll still go check it out if I have time another day. Tianyan chuckled twice. Wire, don't think there is no trouble. Do you think anyone can enter Tiandao sect? People in Tiandao sect are all geniuses among geniuses, elites among the elites in the family. What do you mean? Ao won't take the opportunity to do something with Dad's family. Dad hasn't been back for so many years, I hope it didn't cause much harm. Ming Ao is a man who will retaliate for his anger, and he is also the head of the Tiandao section. It is certain that he will suppress the Chu family. Yuan was not as optimistic as her father. She couldn't help but worry. She didn't know that her father had a family before, which was her family. Now that she knew, she would definitely not be able to sit still. She doesn't like to involve other people with their affairs. She asked, "What does Dad mean that our family is still very powerful in the God realm?" Tianyan nodded. Since his daughter wanted to ask, he would tell her. If she didn't tell her, she would still find it on her own. He said, "The Chu family, the largest cultivating family in the Eastern God territory, is our family at that time. Your grandfather, he is the patriarch, I don't know if he is now." Tianyan sighed after finishing speaking. Seeing her husband's dejected expression, Yao Ji held his hand and said, "Husband, why don't we go back and take a look? We should be fine as long as Wei has some space." It happened that she had given birth to a child, and she happened to take the children back to visit her. Both children had never been back, so it was strange that the husband felt better. Tianyan gently stroked her head and said warmly, "Let's talk about it in a few days." To be honest, he really wanted to go back and see it. He hadn't gone back to see it for hundreds of thousands of years, and he really couldn't bear it. In the past, when I was not a parent, I could not understand the feeling of being a parent. Now that I have 2 children, I can fully understand the feeling of being a parent. When my daughter is away, I miss her anxiously. I always wonder if she is well, if she is in danger, if she has been abducted by some brat, etc. Ming Xiao was listening and felt bad in his heart. He really hated Ming Ao. If he hadn't done these things, their family would not be in this situation now. He almost lost his life because of this. It's a pity that his strength has not been restored now, otherwise he would really go out and capture Ming Ao, extract his soul and refine it, so that he would never be reborn. Ming Xiao looked at his son-in-law and his family, who were in a low mood. He narrowed his eyes slightly. There was no way to keep hiding like this. They said they could hide for a while but not forever. So he had an idea in his mind, and he immediately sent a message to Yuan, "Girl, Grandpa told you the address of Tiandao section. You take Grandpa there, and we will go find your great-grandfather. It's not the way for us to keep hiding here and there. Maybe the girl can join Tiandao section. After joining Tiandao sect, no matter how inhumane Ming Ao is within the sect, he would not dare to take action in Tiandao sect. This will also give the girl a place to stay." Yuan's eyes lit up after hearing this, and she nodded towards Ming Xiao. She has long wanted to visit Tiandao sect to see what kind of place it is, where Ming Ao can be so arrogant without restraint. I also went to see what kind of partial-minded person that man named Ming Qi really was. He was so biased that he could tolerate the arrogance of his younger son when something happened to his eldest son. By the way, let's take a look at who are the people in the Tiandao section. Are they the people who are sanctimonious in the mouth of 10,000 Buddhas, or are they the people who are upright and awe-inspiring for the Wuxia realm in the mouth of Ming Xiao? Ming Xiao pointed his hand, and a divine light shot into Yuan Sea of Consciousness. In Yuan Sea of Consciousness, the divine light turned into a map of the divine world. Yuan took a closer look at the location of Tiandao section. It turned out that it was at the very center of the God realm, on a suspended mountain called Tianwai Mountain. Her parents didn't tell her about such an easy place to find. She took a look at Tianyan and his wife and saw that they protected her very well. She came to protect their home in the future, and she took Ming Xiao out. The grandson and grandpa came to Han Mountain, and she still had some questions to ask Ming Xiao. Grandpa and grandson sat down. Girl, I want to ask you how to find your great-grandfather after you go there. Yuan nodded. That was Ming Ao's territory, and she was worried that Ming Ao would take people once they appeared within the Tiandao sect's territory. Ming Xiao waved his hand and said, Girl, don't worry about this. As long as you get to Tiandao sect and Grandpa has an identity card, you can go directly to your great-grandfather. Grandpa arrived at Tiandao sect, aren't you worried about Ming Ao? Ming Xiao shook his head again. In Tiandao sect, fighting and killing each other are not allowed. He is the sect leader and must abide by the sect rule. If someone violates it, he will not be able to bear the punishment. Yuan nodded repeatedly after hearing this. If this was the case, she would let Ming Xiao go out and she would just watch from inside the space. The grandfather and grandson discussed some specific matters, and then waited for Yaoji's full moon in the space. Ming Xiao also told Tianyan his plan. Tianyan thought it was feasible, so his family simply confronted him head-on, and everyone put it in the open. He wanted to see Ming Ao's deflated look. It was very interesting. Yuan was looking at the mature concentrating flower on Soul Mountain at this time. She wanted to deal with this matter first. After 1,000 years, she didn't know if those two people would still need the concentrating flower. She asked Xiaojia to find Qingyuan. Qingyuan was currently in a mountain forest, fighting with the God-man. The man of God trapped Qingyuan in the formation and said arrogantly, I advise you to be obedient and surrender, as this will save you from death. Qingyuan glared angrily, stop talking nonsense, if you want to fight, fight, and then we'll talk about defeating my emperor. Haha, you are so shameless, let's see how I deal with you. I think your bloodline is very pure and I can't bear to kill you. I want you to be my contracted beast. If you don't know how to praise me, then let me die. Speaking of the magic hand of the divine man, he controlled the formation. This formation is an advanced killing formation. In an instant, countless attacks attacked Qingyuan. At first Qingyuan could resist for a few times, but gradually Qingyuan couldn't resist anymore and showed signs of defeat. Yuan looked at it and shook her head, and immediately stepped out of the space. With a movement of consciousness, she launched a star formation to surround the killing formation. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 734. Chapter 734 Tiandao Sect. Who is it? When the God Emperor saw that his formation was surrounded, he shouted in horror. Withdraw your formation and get out, Yuan sent a message. The man of God was frightened by Yuan. He was in the realm of the God Emperor, and he didn't realize until he was surrounded that he was so strong. He quickly put away the formation, and Yuan opened a door and let him leave. With the man of God gone, Qingyuan was suddenly trapped in a formation again, but this formation only trapped him and did not attack him. Qingyuan looked at this formation with confusion, and suddenly his eyes flashed, and Yuan appeared in front of him. Qingyuan thought it was someone who was attacking him, so he raised his hand to attack Yuan. Stop! Yuan Xingqian took a step forward, ducked behind Qingyuan, and shouted loudly. Qingyuan saw that she was a goddess, or a goddess in the early stage of deity. He took back his hand and said, what does the goddess mean? Yuan, it's not interesting. I'm looking for you today because I'm bringing you something. Send something. Qingyuan looked at Yuan warily. Yuan smiled, took out a jade box from the space, and threw it to Qingyuan. Go on, let's take a look. Qingyuan was confused. This goddess who appeared out of nowhere gave him something. It seemed weird. He doesn't understand the world of human monks. He made a contract with him one breath ago, but when the contract failed, he killed him. This time, another person came to give him something. It really confused him. However, he still took the jade box. There was no restriction on the jade box. He carefully released his consciousness and looked at Yuan while wary of it. Concentration flower, Qingyuan exclaimed. He looked at Yuan in surprise. Is this what you sent me? Yuan nodded. Why? What do you need me to do? Qingyuan asked with a serious look on his face. He didn't think that a pie was falling from the sky and hit him, and he didn't believe that a goddess gave him the concentration flower that he desperately needed for no reason. I came to this mountain range just to find the Ningxian flower, and I didn't want to meet a crazy person trying to marry him. How could he, a member of the Ice Phoenix clan of divine beasts, contract with humans as divine beasts? He would never agree to it even if he died. As mythical beasts, they have their pride and self-esteem. Yuan, don't get me wrong, I don't have any intentions, let alone any ulterior motives. You should remember that when you were on the third floor of the sacred tower, there was a concentrating flower there. Qingyuan was startled. Did you take away the concentrating flower? Yes, I took it and used it to save people. This is what I got in addition, so I will give you this concentration flower. Of course she would never tell Qingyuan what was going on in the Black Mountain secret realm, let alone tell him that she had been in it. Qingyuan nodded. He was not angry because Yuan took away the condensing flower. A person who has no owner can take it, which only shows that his skills are inferior to others, and he should be grateful. Some people were kind enough to send him one. Thank you, goddess. Qingyuan cupped his fists towards Yuan, and then put the concentrating flower into the space. No matter what the goddess asked him to do, he was willing to exchange it. Yuan waved her hand and put away the star formation. She said, what happened before was a last resort. I hope I didn't delay you. So be it. I'm leaving. After saying this, Yuan stepped into the space and asked Xiaoji to find another person, Su Yang. Qingyuan was stunned on the spot. He didn't know whether this was an illusion or reality. There was such a kind goddess in the god realm now. He scratched his face and felt pain. He took another look at the concentration flower in the space. He took a deep breath and disappeared from the spot. On the other side of the small world, Su Yang was found. He was currently in an auction house. He was now wandering around every large auction house in the god realm to see if he could encounter the concentrating flower. At first, Qingyuan was asked to enter the secret realm, but after leaving the secret realm, he learned that the magical medicine garden in the middle of the secret realm had disappeared mysteriously. They were both disappointed, and each looked for the concentration flower. Yuan did not go to him directly, but handed the Ningxian flower to the auction and left a message to give to the Emperor Su Yang. Yuan returned to the space and took a deep breath. Fortunately, the two of them were not delayed. How could anyone at the auction dare to hand over the condensing flower directly to Su Yang without buying anything belonging to the god emperor? When the maid at the auction house found Su Yang and handed him the concentration flower, Su Yang was extremely excited. He asked, "Do you know who left it?" The maid shook her head, "Lord God Emperor, we don't know who the other party is. She just told you to hand over this concentration flower to you and left." "Oh, that's it, thank you." Su Yang took the condensing flower, hurriedly left the auction, returned to the Black Mountain Mountains, handed the condensing flower to his father, and told his father the origin of the condensing flower. He went to find Qingyuan himself. No one else knew that he needed the concentration flower, except Qingyuan, so he thought it was Qingyuan who sent it. If this is the case, then he should thank the person no matter what, and cannot ask for his things in vain. 3 months later, Yuan asked Xiaoji to find Tiandao sect. "Grandpa, are you ready?" Yuan asked Ming Xiao. Ming Xiao took a deep breath and nodded. "Girl, Grandpa is ready, let's go out." Okay. Yuan first slipped out of the space, landed at the door of Tiandao sect, and then moved out of Ming Xiao. The mountain gate of Tiandao sect was hidden in the formation. Ming Xiao took out a token and threw it into the air. The token emitted a divine light. After the divine light passed, a brilliant and simple mountain gate suddenly appeared in front of them. Send a letter to Tiandao sect. Yuan did not look at those 3 words carefully, but followed Ming Xiao up the steps. When they reached the door, 2 gods immediately stepped out and blocked their way. Please show me your token. Ming Xiao handed his token to the speaker. After the speaker looked at his token, he looked surprised, respectfully returned the token to Ming Xiao, and said respectfully, "It turns out to be master, I'm sorry. Disciples are incompetent." Ming Xiao waved his hand and said, "No problem, this is my granddaughter, let's go in first." The 2 of them did not dare to stop Yuan, and respectfully invited them to enter the Tiandao sect. Entering Tiandao sect, Yuan raised her eyes and saw that Tiandao sect was filled with floating palaces. "Why didn't Ming Ao show up?" Yuan asked. "They all came in with such great fanfare, but Ming Ao didn't stop them. I guess it's not in the section. Let's go find your great-grandfather quickly." "Good." Ming Xiao and Yuan immediately flew up and flew towards the palace behind. Behind the palace was an endless mountain. Yuan looked around and saw that the mountain was actually inside the barrier. "Grandpa, is this place a sacred place?" Ming Xiao said calmly, "Well, the sacred place is hidden in this mountain. Wait a moment, little girl." Ming Xiao said and offered his token again. The token sizzled in front of the barrier and emitted a golden light. The golden light shot towards the barrier. The barrier shook, and then the token flew back to Ming Xiao's hand. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 735. Chapter 735 Minky. Ming Qi felt someone knocking on the door in the divine land. He released his spiritual consciousness. To his surprise, it was Ming Xiao. His spiritual consciousness moved and he appeared in front of Ming Xiao. Ming Qi looked at Ming Xiao nervously, as if he was afraid that the person in front of him would disappear. He asked carefully, "Is it Xiao?" Ming Xiao nodded lightly, not as excited as Ming Qi. He said, "Dad, I am Ming Xiao." Seeing his eldest son being so cold, Ming Qi's heart sank. He knew that his eldest son hated him and hated him for not helping him deal with Ming Ao, but Ming Ao was also his son, so he couldn't kill them all. He lowered his eyelids, took a deep breath and said, "You, just be okay, Dad, I." Ming Qi felt sour in his heart. He was choked with sobs and could not speak. What should he say? It seemed that the only thing suitable for him was to say, "It's okay." Ming Xiao then held Yuan's hand and said, "Girl, I have met my great-grandfather." Great-grandfather Yuan's attitude was very respectful. "Huh, Zai Wei," Minky then noticed Yuan. Yuan felt trembling in her heart. This great-grandfather was very familiar with her. Did he really turn a blind eye to their family and stand by and watch as he appeared? Yuan was indifferent and just watched quietly, giving her the feeling that this great-grandfather was not a simple person. Ming Xiao nodded, still speaking in a calm tone, "Yes, this is not the place to talk. Let's go back first." Okay. Ming Qi waved his hand and led the 2 of them to his palace in Tiandao sect. This palace is called Fusion Palace. It has a majestic appearance and is floating on the mountain, far away from other palaces. Ming Qi put the 2 men down and made a gesture. In an instant, the palace door opened and the 3 of them entered. There was no one in the palace, so Ming Qi moved out a set of low tables and 3 futons. Yuan looked at the set and saw that they were all artifacts. The 3 of them sat down, and Minky took out another tea set, which was also a magical tool. Yuan is not rare at all. The artifacts used in her space are no less than those from Ming Qi. Of course, they were all robbed. How has Xiao been doing these years? Ming Qi asked after pouring some tea. He actually wanted to ask how Ming Xiao escaped from Ming Ao. He searched Ming Ao many times but could not find him. He couldn't anger Ming Ao, so he had lived a miserable life over the years, and only he knew the feeling. "How is your son doing, haven't you asked Ming Ao?" Ming Xiao complained, full of complaints. "Dad, hey." All Minky's helplessness turned into a long sigh. Yuan saw that he had aged 10,000 years, but she did not say a word. She wanted to see if her grandfather wanted justice, and how her great-grandfather would deal with it. Ming Qi glanced at Yuan. She must have understood what happened to Ming Xiao. Seeing that she was still so calm, this child had a much more mature mind. He looked at Ming Xiao with an indifferent expression again, knowing that if he didn't deal with Ming Ao and Tianya today, his son might never be a stranger to him again. The palms and backs of the hands are all flesh. The eldest son has suffered for so many years, and he should be dealt with emotionally and rationally. There is also Ziwei. This child also suffered the disaster because of Ming Ao and his son. Fortunately, he discovered it in time, otherwise the child would also have disappeared into ashes. After all, it was also Ming Ao and his son's fault. Now that the eldest son can come back safe and sound, at least he can feel at ease, otherwise how can he be worthy of their fallen mother? Thinking of his fallen wife, he sighed and said, "Ming Ao is not suitable to be in charge of the Tiandao sect anymore, and Wei is in the star body. Let Wei manage it next. As for Ming Ao, let him guard the battlefield outside the territory for eternity. Not allowed to return to the five-axis realm. As for Tianya, let's go together. Xiao will be the main god, and it's time for the god realm to take good care of it." Ming Xiao listened and looked up at his father, who had grown older in an instant. It was really not easy for his father to punish Ming Ao and his son. Ming Xiao no longer blamed him so much in his heart, and he calmed down and said, "Dad has no objection to Ming Ao's punishment of his son. It is what he deserves. If he were not my brother, I would categorically refuse such punishment. Forget it is just the position of Lord God. Now that my cultivation level has only returned to that of a god king, I am not suitable to manage the god realm. I'd better find another suitable person. The girl can manage the Tiandao sect, and the son will take over the job for the girl." After saying that, Ming Xiao looked at Yuan and nodded to her, meaning to ask her to agree. In those days in the space, I knew that she had an unruly temperament and liked to be free. Now that she was asked to take care of the Tiandao sect, she probably wouldn't be willing to do it, so he might as well accept it first. He thought that if he took over the Tiandao sect, it would be of great benefit to his family. First of all, it would ensure that their family could have smooth access to the Five Hubs realm, and no one would come out to embarrass them. Moreover, if Mujukan walks around in the God realm in the future, the Shang Yuan ancestor will not embarrass him. Actually, Yuan is also thinking about this issue. Tiandao sect, such a mysterious sect, can be obtained so easily, it feels a bit like a dream. My heart could not help but beat violently. This was so different from being a disciple of Jian Tiandao section. This surprise came too suddenly and too fast. This made her even more impressed by Ming Qi's strength. But she knew that getting something so easily was not a good thing. But he is in control of the benefits that Tiandao sect has brought to their family, which is simply an unprecedented change. She can't refuse either emotionally or rationally. She didn't have much freedom after just agreeing, but for the future safety of her family, Yuan nodded. Ming Xiao felt relieved when he saw Yuan agreed. The child was still not confused at the critical moment. He was very happy. As for Ming Qi, it was within his expectation that Yuan agreed. He knew the situation of his eldest son's family better than anyone else, so he made such an arrangement. Everyone is selfish, and he cannot save even one son. Moreover, in this way, he can heal his wounds in God's land with peace of mind. That's very good. Don't worry, Wire. There aren't many people in the Tiandao sect and there aren't many things to do. With Wire's cleverness, Wire will get started quickly. Ming Qi smiled and said. "Ye, thank you, great-grandfather Yuan." Naturally had to be polite and respectful. Just because Ming Qi could dismiss the position of sect leader and chief at will, this great-grandfather had a lot of power. She has to hold on to such a golden thigh tightly. She is not stupid and pushes good things to the outside. Minky, no need to thank me. If you want to thank me, just thank yourself. Thanks to her being born with an astral body, it's just that it's not time for her to know it yet. When the time comes, she will naturally understand. Minky then fought in the air and summoned Mingao and Tianya. The father and son stood confused in the main hall. When they saw Ming Xiao and Yuan, their shocked expressions could not be more severe. They never expected that Yuan would come directly to Tiandao sect and find the old man. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 736. Chapter 736. Ming Ao and his son. Ming Ao's heart sank. He had missed this despite all the calculations. In his opinion, they will not come to Tiandao sect before Ming Xiao recovers or before Yuan reaches the level of deity. Coming to Tiandao sect was undoubtedly a result of falling into a trap. But it's different now. He still underestimated the boldness of these two people. On the other hand, Ming Xiao and Yuan felt very happy at the moment. You two stand. How could Minky not see the expressions on the two men's faces? He was not blind, but his dislike for his younger son and his son had risen to another level. There are no rules at all. Even if you don't show courtesy when you see him, you still look at the eldest son and his two sons with those naked eyes. He pointed to the spot next to him. Ming Ao and Tianya finally reacted, saluted him, and stood beside him obediently. Then they looked at the three people sitting and wondered what would happen next. They knew very well that nothing good would happen. Father and son looked at each other. Father and son were both frightened. They knew how powerful the old man was. Ming Ao, do you know your guilt? Ming Qi stared at Ming Ao. Ming Ao's heart trembled, and he lowered his head. What crime is my son guilty of? Even if he is guilty, he will not admit it. Ming Qi looked at him like he was a dead pig and was not afraid of boiling water. He felt angry and sad in his heart. He sighed, I still refuse to repent until now. My father is usually too indulgent of you. I don't know when you became so open-minded. It's Dad's fault for being so narrow-minded. It is also his sorrow. It's a father's fault to raise children without godliness. Ming Qi was heartbroken. Since Dad thinks it's your fault, why is your son at fault? Ming Ao said angrily. If it weren't for his father's partiality, would he be so extreme? You killed your brother and kidnapped your sister-in-law, and also persecuted your niece's family. Are you doing well? Ming Xiao stood up and gave Ming Ao a slap in the face. He had wanted to hit him for a long time. You hit me, Ming Ao asked Ming Xiao in a sinister tone, covering his face. Shouldn't it be right? You tortured my grandpa with only a trace of his soul left. If my grandfather hadn't been here, do you think I would have let you go? Yuan also stood up, glaring at Ming Ao, and protecting Ming Xiao behind her. If she wasn't strong enough now, she would have killed Ming Ao long ago. There is also Tianya who stands aside and acts like a quail. Girl Ming Xiao was moved to tears, and his obedient grandson knew how to protect him. Ming Qi was shocked, with only a ray of soul left? How could Ming Ao be so cruel? He thought that at worst, Ming Ao would imprison Ming Xiao somewhere, but he didn't expect it to be like this. Ming Qi was so angry that the blood in his heart surged. Yuan patted Ming Xiao's hand, and she stared at Ming Ao. Ming Ao dared to do anything to them today, she would support him even if she died. Just you, Ming Ao said disdainfully. If the old man hadn't been here, he would have killed her with 2 fingers. What about me? Ming Chi slapped the table. Of course Dad can do whatever he wants. Ming Ao looked at Ming Chi sideways and said angrily. The old man has always been partial. He was going to be punished today anyway, so why should he be polite to them? If Minky could see what he was thinking, he would not be his father. He said, "Do you think your father was very partial at the beginning? You are obviously an astral body, but you want your eldest brother to be the leader of this sect. Do you think being the head of the Shangtian Dao sect is a great thing? Supreme glory? Do you know the responsibilities of being a sect leader? Why has Laozi never told you anything about Tiandao sect in all these years? And the responsibility of the Tiandao sect master? Do you think you are the only one who is so relaxed?" Ming Ao was stunned for a moment when asked by Ming Chi. It turned out that he was not recognized as the head of the Tiandao sect, let alone the Tiandao sect he came into contact with. It turns out that his father is still the same father, still so partial. Yuan listened to what Ming Chi said, and her heart sank. What did Ming Chi mean? From what he meant, is it still related to the astral body? It's not what Ming Xiao said before, it's just that he can practice star art. Her eyes tightened, there must be something she didn't know about. She then thought again, since Ming Chi asked her to be in charge of Tiandao sect, she would know about it sooner or later. Ming Ao has been the sect leader for so many years, it is just a position, nothing more. Ming Xiao was thinking about Ming Chi's words, which didn't sound right to him. It seemed that there were things in the star body that he didn't know about. He looked at Yuan, who was thoughtful, and she probably was thinking about it too. Ming Ao was furious. Why do you do this to me? Why? Do you still want me to tell you? Look at all the good things you, father and son, have done. If I hadn't taken care of you 2 idiots, you 2 would have been sent to battlefields outside the territory. Minky was also very angry and said everything at once. Father and son, Tianya had some reaction at this moment. What if? Otherwise, if you thought you were doing something safe, our Ming family would have expelled you long ago. Ming Chi glanced at this fool. Tianya looked at Ming Ao, who rolled his eyes at him and said angrily, "Look, I am your father." That's it, Tianya lowered his eyes. No wonder Ming Ao refused to marry Yao Ji to him. It turns out they are brother and sister. How can brothers and sisters be husband and wife? No wonder when he imprisoned Yao Ji, Ming Ao told him not to touch her. Okay, don't be desperate. I've called you here today and asked you to hand over the seals. Please take them out. Ming Chi looked at the troubled father and son, waved his hand and said. Seal, Ming Ao and his son asked in surprise at the same time. Why don't you come here to let your father and son recognize each other? I want you to come and see your eldest brother. Isn't it just a word about what you father and son have done? Father and son choked. Tianya was practical and took out a jade box and gave it to Minky. Minky looked at it and put it in the space. Ming Ao stood still. Suddenly, Ming Ao who was standing there disappeared. Stubborn, Ming Chi said softly, and he grabbed it into the air. The space twisted a few times where he grabbed it, and Ming Ao appeared in his hand. Minky threw Ming Ao to the ground and said, "You are so." He stepped forward to collect Ming Ao's space and hit a few strikes on it. When a golden light flashed, he found a box inside and threw it to Yuan before throwing the space back to Ming Ao. Yuan has been shocked by Ming Chi's series of techniques. Powerful, this is true power. Yuan has a little bit of admiration in her heart, but more importantly she still wants to be like Ming Chi. Judging from the hands he showed, Ming Chi's realm has exceeded the 5-axis realm. Ming Chi glanced at the troubled father and son. He was making gestures with his hands in the air, and a vortex appeared there. When the whirlpool got bigger and bigger, Minky grabbed Ming Ao and Tianya and threw them into the vortex, and then they disappeared. Ming Qi then took a deep breath and asked Ming Xiao and Yuan to sit down. The grandfather and grandson were not polite and sat down with smiles. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 737. Chapter 737 Ming Ao and his son step down. No matter what, Ming Ao and his son can no longer be arrogant in the God realm and Tiandao section. The trip was worth it for the grandfather and grandson. It is a lie to feel unhappy. Especially Ming Xiao, Ming Ao's actions are like a huge stone weighing on his heart. If not removed, it will eventually become his inner demon. Now that it was finally removed, he felt relaxed and comfortable. At this time, Ming Xiao sent a message to Yuan, "Move your parents out and let them see you." The purpose of their trip was also achieved, and they also allowed Ming Qi to meet his daughter and son-in-law. He would not go to pick up Yuan until the matter here was settled. Yuan nodded, and with a flash of consciousness, he immediately moved Tianyan and the others out. Ming Qi was surprised when he saw the three people who suddenly appeared. "I didn't expect that this great-granddaughter would still have life space. Life space is not uncommon in the God realm. But not just anyone can have it." Tianyan and Yaoji immediately saluted Ming Qi. "I've met Grandpa." Ming Qi smiled and lifted the two of them up with a wave of his hand. He stood up and walked to Yaoji. He looked at the sleeping Chuling in her arms. Seeing his cute look, he couldn't help but said, "Come, let great-grandfather hug." Yaoji nodded and gently placed little Chuling in Ming Ao's arms. Ming Qi held little Chuling and rocked him back and forth in the hall like a mortal, but his eyes were fixed on little Chuling, his eyes full of gentleness. The four people in Ming Xiao were stunned. They didn't expect Minky to be so down to earth. Yung Xiao felt sad when she saw it. Minky was so skilled in holding babies. He must have held the two brothers when they were young. Thinking of the relationship between the two brothers, Ming Xiao felt suffocated and felt a faint pain. When they were young, they had a very good relationship as brothers. They practiced together, experienced together, and shared whatever good things they had together. It wasn't until his father intended to pass on the title of Tiandao sex leader to him that the relationship between them suddenly changed, and Ming Ao finally raised the butcher's knife against him. Well. Ming Xiao let out a long sigh in his heart. It was his own suicide attempt. "Do you have a name?" Ming Qi asked in a low voice, fearing to scare little Chuling. "My name is Chuling," Tianyan said. "Well, the name is good." Top Gun Ming Qi smiled. "Oh, by the way, you guys can go to the Chu tribe later. I heard that the current situation of the Chu tribe is not very good. I'll wait for my grandpa to send out another divine prophecy." Ming Qi thought of this and said that he had watched before, just for fear of causing Ming Ao to retaliate even more crazily. At that time, he was really reluctant to punish Ming Ao and his son. They had done nothing wrong in the God realm except for Ming Xiao, so he didn't care about it. It is very difficult for a God man to conceive an heir, even more difficult than practicing cultivation. After dealing with Ming Ao and his son, the life and death of the eldest son was unknown, so he had selfish motives. Tianyan and Yaoji looked at each other and couldn't help but feel worried. Ming Qi said that the situation was not very good, definitely very bad. "Thank you, Grandpa." Tianyan thanked him. "You don't have to be so polite. I'm old and I like to see the younger generations living in harmony." Ming Qi sighed for a lifetime and gave Chuling in his arms to Yaoji. Ming Qi felt somewhat comforted by the fact that his eldest son and his family were like this. Na raised his hand to signal Tianyan and Yaoji to sit down. The two nodded and sat next to him. Ming Qi told them what he had just said to Ming Xiao. "Tianyan, if your father-in-law doesn't want to be the main god, and Grandpa wants to do it, then you can do it." This Tianyan was a little hesitant. He was reluctant to part with Baisha divine realm. Baisha divine realm was slowly restored by him, and he devoted a lot of energy to it. Just like his child, watching it slowly become stronger, how can you let it go once it is let go? What, you don't want to do it too? Ming Qi frowned. Neither of them wanted to be the main god. The position of the main was very hot. To be honest, the Tianxia divine realm has always been in the hands of the Ming clan, and it is impossible for him to give up this power to others. Tianyan quickly waved his hand and said, "No, Grandpa, you misunderstood, but I am now in the Baisha divine realm, in charge of the Baisha realm." Baisha realm, how did you go there? Ming Qi looked at Tianyan without knowing what was going on. As far as he knows, these 5 pivot realms were only recently connected. Tianyan came back to his senses now. This was Weir's secret exposed. He patted his forehead, he was confused. When Yuan saw this, she immediately understood. She took over the question and briefly and concisely told the story about the invasion of Baisha realm by demonic energy. Of course, she mentioned 10,000 Buddhas. Ming Qi was fine when he heard that Baisha realm was invaded by demonic energy. When he heard about 10,000 Buddhas, his face darkened and he looked at Yuan. "Wire, it's the 10,000 Buddhas from Tianxia realm. He is now in your space." Yuan nodded. She was helpless, hoping to distract Ming Qi from noticing how they went to Baisha realm. Although this is a self-deceiving idea, it can be deceiving for a while. The world gate is much more precious than the life space. There is only one world gate, but there are countless life spaces. Ming Qi felt funny when he saw Yuan's overt and cautious look, thinking that he could get away with it this way. This ghost girl, doesn't he know that only the realm gate can travel freely among all realms? He smiled and said, "Wire, you don't have to be so careful. How could your great-grandfather not think that only the realm gate can do it, allowing you to walk freely in all realms? Don't worry, my great-grandfather is not shameless enough to covet my great-granddaughter's treasure. Be careful when using it outside. Great-grandfather is very curious about the 10,000 Buddhas. Presumably Weir already knows about his origins with Tiandao sect, right?" Yuan felt relieved and nodded. She happened to also want to know what her great-grandfather's attitude towards 10,000 Buddhas was. 10,000 Buddhas cannot stay in her space forever, and she will definitely let him go when the time comes. Just asking her to hand over 10,000 Buddhas, or... Ming Qi said solemnly, "Since he is in your space, don't let him come out." In ancient times, in the battle between 10,000 Buddhas and our Tiandao sect, the ancestors of Tiandao sect sent out a total of 10, but none of them came out. Completely destroy him. 4 of our ancestors are missing. We don't know where they are now, but their soul cards show that they are still there. Great-grandfather guessed that the 4 ancestors must be imprisoned in the 10,000 Buddhas temple. Weir could tell him when she had time to release all the ancestors. Minky is very determined. "I haven't looked for it anywhere in Tianxia realm, I just can't find it." Yuan was very surprised. She had never heard the great monk say this before. The great monk was indeed not as simple as it seemed. He is very scheming. Just now she was thinking about when to drive away the 10,000 Buddhas, but now that great-grandfather keeps him in the dimension, this matter will be difficult to handle. But now that she has said this, Yuan narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "Can my great-grandfather tell me what happened back then?" End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 738. Chapter 738 The Battle That Year. Listen to what happened that year and make plans for the future. Ming Qi nodded, there was nothing to hide about this matter, and then he said, "Actually, we can't say who is right or wrong about this matter. You know, in the Wuxia realm, Taoist cultivators are the main ones, and other Buddhist, demon and ghost cultivators, demon cultivators, these are incomparable to Tao cultivators. their power cannot surpass Tao cultivators no matter what. This is mainly due to the fact that the divine power of the God realm is stronger than other powers. A few people nodded, and they all understood that this was also the reason why Taoism became the mainstream. Minky added, in ancient times, the 10,000 Buddhas ran out of nowhere and founded the 10,000 Buddhist temple. He practiced dishonestly and preached the benefits and harms of Buddhist practice in the God realm. Then at that time, a lot of people went to Wanfo temple. The 10,000 Buddhist temple was growing day by day. Seeing this situation, the Tiandao sect could not sit still, so they wanted to clean up the 10,000 Buddhist temple. The Buddhist power of 10,000 Buddhist temple indeed played an immeasurable role in the war between gods and demons, and the Tiandao sect never took action to stop it from growing. Unexpectedly, 10,000 Buddhas have taken advantage of it, and half of the people in the divine world have gone to practice Buddhism, and even slandered Taoism and the Tiandao section. The ancestors couldn't stand it anymore. One night, Tiandao sect dispatched 10 ancestors, 10 against 1. The battle was so brutal, which shows how powerful the 10,000 Buddhas are. After the war, 4 ancestors were seriously injured and are still recovering in the land of gods. 4 more ancestors are missing and have been searched throughout Tianxia realm but cannot be found. The other 2 ancestors are still guarding the battlefield outside the territory. After the 4 people heard this, they were shocked in their hearts. They were shocked at the strength of 10,000 Buddhas. One ancestor was the existence they looked up to, and there were 10 more. The 4 of them clicked their tongues, unable to see that 10,000 Buddhas looked like they were indifferent to the fireworks of the world. They were so tough that one could fight against 10. The 4 of them all wanted to go back to space and let 10,000 Buddhas talk about that extraordinary battle. Especially Tian Yan, he admires 10,000 Buddhas beyond measure. Not to mention that in the past, people in Tianxia world went to practice Buddhism. It was not because they disliked Taoism. He felt that it was worship of the strong. Let's not talk about his battle with the 10 great ancestors, let's talk about the battle between gods and demons. If Wanfo hadn't led the disciples of Wanfo temple, it is estimated that Tianxia realm, and even the entire Wuxia realm, would have been dominated by the demons. And today's Bai Shizhao, not only 10,000 Buddhas, is now also in the demon world. He is indispensable to 10,000 Buddhas. Therefore, they have no way to evaluate who was right and who was wrong in what happened back then. The merits of 10,000 Buddhas are there and they are indelible. The battle with Tiandao sect can only be said to be a battle between 2 factions. Tianyan feels that practicing Buddhism is not a bad thing. Generally speaking, Buddhist cultivators generally have a much better mind than Taoist cultivators. They abstain from sex, stealing, robbing, and killing. In short, there are certain restrictions, unlike Taoism. Only when there is morality in the heart is it called Taoism. When not, it is more cruel than evil cultivation. After hearing this, Yuan felt a sigh in her heart, and she had no judgment about what happened back then. When it comes to this kind of thing, everyone is justified, and the final result is whoever has the bigger fist, what he says is the truth. To put it bluntly, in a world where strength is valued, there is no right or wrong, only what should be done and what should not be done. However, what Minky said is not very different from what Wan Buddha said, which means that Wan Buddha did not speak nonsense. It's just that he acted too arrogantly and violated other people's taboos. Tiandaizong is not as sanctimonious as he said, but their positions are different. As far as Tiandao sect goes to foreign battlefields to prevent attacks by alien creatures, based on this alone, it is a bit far-fetched to say that Tiandao sect is sanctimonious. Of course, if 10,000 Buddhas had not been injured and hidden at that time, depending on his personality, he would have gone to the battlefield outside the territory. Yuan was puzzled by the fact that the ancestors were still recovering from their injuries in the Tiandao sect's sacred land. What injury is being treated? It hasn't healed for so long. Could it be that his soul was injured? Great-grandfather, Ancestor, are their souls injured? Ming Qi glanced at Yuan. This great-granddaughter was really smart. Just because they were still healing, they could tell that their souls were injured. To become a god-man, it is not only the soul that is injured that is very difficult to heal, but also the sea of consciousness. Once the sea of consciousness is injured or collapses, it will be more difficult to deal with than the injury to the soul. He nodded. Not only the four ancestors, but also his soul was injured. He did not participate in that battle at that time, but he was sent to the battlefield outside the territory to fight against the monks from outside the territory and injured his soul. In that battle, not only he was injured, even his wife was injured. Otherwise, after giving birth to the Mingxiao brothers, they would not have died. Yuan wonders if there is no magical medicine to cure the soul in the great god realm. There should be a concentrating flower in the god realm at that time. It makes sense that the concentrating flower is almost extinct now. Ming Qi seemed to see her doubts and said, they all have their souls dispersed. It is a long process to slowly gather their souls and practice again. Yuan nodded, she understood this. Don't you have the concentrating flower and divine soul vein? There must be divine soul veins in the divine world, and they can be moved into space or into the divine land just like her. Ming Qi sighed and said, it's easy for Wei-er to say, but the concentrating flower is really hard to find. It was very difficult to find in ancient times, and it may not be mature if you find it. Oh, that's it, the four of them understood. Only. Mingxiao remained silent. It was impossible for him to say that there was a concentration flower in Weir's space. There are not only concentrating flowers, but also many soul flowers. The same goes for Tian Yayan and Yaoji. They would not say anything without their daughter's permission. She will also keep secrets for her daughter to avoid causing unnecessary disasters. Yuan was thinking about it at the moment, waiting until she saw the souls of those ancestors. She will save her only if it is worth saving. After all, she is now considered the head of the Tiandao sect, so she took this incident as an opportunity to gain recognition from the ancestors. If it was true that they were sanctimonious and heinous people, as 10,000 Buddhas said, she would not use the Ningxen flower to save them. Even let them stay in the 10,000 Buddhas temple. As for the four in the land of gods, the same thing happened. She still remembered Mujukan being cursed. He feels that we are all cultivators and people who pursue the great path. They should coexist peacefully when it does not affect their own interests. There is no need to be competitive and care about who is weak and who is strong. Let's not bully the weak, destroy someone's entire clan, or even curse them to prevent their clan from returning to the divine realm. This approach is really to kill them all. Of course, the other party is that heinous family. It is natural for you to stand up for justice and kill them. So, if the patriarch was injured, she would definitely not save him. Whether he is right or wrong, she will never reach out. She was just thinking about making Mujukan suffer for so many years, and it had nothing to do with anything else. Yuan calmly asked Ming Qi for a while, Grandpa Zheng, what is the situation of the ancestors of the Shang Yuan dynasty now? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 739. Chapter 739 Chu Clan. Ancestor Shang Yuan? Wire, do you know him? Ming Qi was stunned. He really underestimated this great-granddaughter. He looked at his son, who should have told her. After all, the son knows the ancestor. It's just that the great-granddaughter asked him what he was doing. Yuan pursed her lips and said, in ancient times, was it the ancestor of Shang Yuan who led the Tiandao sect to destroy the Suzaku clan in Nanxia realm? Ming Qi smiled, Wire even knows about this. These things all happened in ancient times. Grandpa told me. Yuan nodded. Ming Chi thought as expected. When Wei asked about this, she met someone from the Suzaku clan. Otherwise, given the child's temperament, she would definitely not talk about this matter. She has not said a word of nonsense since she came. Yuan nodded again. That person has a personal relationship with me. Ming Chi suddenly remembered that the ancestor of the Shang dynasty suffered a backlash some time ago, which meant that the people of the Suzaku clan had solved the curse. Ming Chi was surprised that there was still someone in this world who could solve the ancestor's curse. This person was quite extraordinary. Who is it? He was very curious. He looked at the people in front of him and thought to himself, is he one of them? Impossible. Ming Chi was curious and his great-granddaughter wanted to know, so he told her that after receiving the seal of Tiandao sect, she would be the leader of the section. There were some secrets that could be known, not to mention that this was not a secret. It's just that the events were so long ago that most people no longer remember those events. Ming Chi then said, Ancestor Shang Yuan was one of the first disciples of the Tiandao sect when it was founded, and is currently the most senior ancestor of the Tiandao section. He is currently guarding the divine realm in the divine land. What happened back then was actually similar to that of the 10,000 Buddhist temple. Several ancestors from the heavenly Dao came forward and wiped out the Suzaku clan, and then cast a spell so that no descendant of the Suzaku clan would ever be allowed to enter the divine realm. At that time, the 5 pivot realms were still connected, so the divine realm refers to the divine realm of the 5 realms. Hu and Wire is under a spell and needs great-grandfather's help. Finally, Minky asked who was under the spell. Yuan didn't hide it. Minky would know about it sooner or later, so he told Mujukan's identity. And also said 2 treasures. It's strange, while Yangbao wasn't cursed. Great-grandfather, do you know what is going on? This? Great-grandfather doesn't know what's going on. I guess you are of great-grandfather's bloodline. You have to ask the ancestors about this matter for details. Ming Chi heard this and felt that this was a bit unbelievable. The only explanation he could give was the reason he gave. Yuan also felt that what Ming Chi said made sense, so he stopped asking about it. They already knew what they should know. Father, let the children go to the Chu tribe first. If my son has anything to say to you, I will talk to you. Ming Xiao saw that things were almost over, and he was worried about Kaiyu, so he drove them away. Okay, then you go, I'll handle some things with your father. In addition, you can go back and think about the position of Lord God of Tianxia realm and tell me the result, Ming Chi said to Tianyan. Okay. Tianyan stood up and took his wife and children out of the palace. Dad, the Chu people are far away when we fly over like this. Am I walking through space? Yuan asked as soon as she came out. Let's walk from the space, hurry up. Tianyan couldn't wait. Okay, let's enter the space, Yuan said, leading them into the space, and then asked Xiaojia to search for the Chu people. Having the direction, Xiaojia searches immediately. The Chu clan in the East Immortal territory was surrounded by people. One of the Immortal Lords shouted to the Chu clan, Clan Chief Chu should open the formation and let us go in and have a good talk, otherwise don't blame us, we're welcome. In a meeting hall of the Chu clan, 6 middle-aged men were sitting at the top. Their cultivation level was all at the level of the god. Sitting below him was a middle-aged man who was the god emperor. At this time, he was suffering. He pursed his face and said nothing. Chu Mingfeng, your son is the one who caused the trouble. Go out and solve it yourself at this time, the older second elder said aggressively. After hearing this, Chu Mingfen nodded with a wry smile and asked him to solve it himself. What should he solve? His son had been missing for more than 100,000 years, and suddenly a woman appeared, claiming to be his daughter-in-law and bringing a child with her. It's really a ghost. My son is gone. Where are my daughter-in-law and grandson? This is obviously the strategy of the Mo clan envoy. Over the years, the Chu tribe has been severely suppressed, and its original territory has been reduced by 2/3. Only 1/3 of the territory is left, and the entire tribe has retreated to this tribe's land. The Namu tribe will be driven out and exterminated. Before killing them all, they did not hesitate to ruin his son's reputation. The man of God still cares about his reputation. How could a person with a bad reputation take over the position of the Chu clan leader in the future? Chu Mingfeng raised his eyes and looked at the 6 elders above him, and he sneered in his heart. He had worked hard for the clan over the years, but what he got in the end was this, which he had to face alone. He is a god emperor facing 7 gods. Chu Mingfeng felt chilled in his heart. Moreover, the child didn't belong to their clan at first glance, and had no blood resonance at all. These blind guys pushed him out. To put it bluntly, they let him bear the anger of the Mo clan alone. If he died, the clan leader would immediately take over. Don't think he doesn't know what these people are planning. If the ancestor and his son were here, would they dare to do this to him? He stood up, raised his hands to the 6 elders above and said, 6 elders, don't worry, Mingfeng will definitely handle this matter. Speaking, he strode out of the clan area and stood opposite the caller, that is, in front of the leader of the Black Ink clan. Beside Patriarch Mo, a pitiful Gui Ren was holding a child and looking at Chu Mingfeng eagerly. Clan Chief Chu is so arrogant. I'm here in person, so I don't dare to see people, Chief Mo said sarcastically. Chu Mingfeng held up his hands and said, what did team leader Mo mean by not being able to meet people? If you come alone, my clan leader will welcome you, but if you come with such a person, how can this team leader see you? Seeing that you accept that woman, doesn't it mean that you directly acknowledge what her son has done? It means that his son is a man of bad moral character. How will a man who abandons his wife and son gain a foothold in the world of gods in the future? Fortunately, they didn't know that his son was the former Dong Shenjun, otherwise they would have no idea what their son's reputation would be like. Since Chief Chu doesn't admit it, then call your son out and confront him face to face. If it was your son who did it, you have to recognize this wife here. My daughter of the Mo family is not someone who can be abused. Chu Mingfeng narrowed his eyes and returned the daughter of the Mo family. This old man was ruthless and spent a lot of money. He said in a deep voice, Clan leader Mo, isn't he trying to make things difficult for me? He knows that my son has not been seen for hundreds of thousands of years. You can't just go back and have another son. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 740. Chapter 740 Arrival. If you want him to admit it, he won't even admit it to his death. Humph. If you don't eat the toast, you'll have to drink wine as a penalty, so don't blame me for being rude. Chief Mo's eyes narrowed slightly, and he waved his hand behind him. The 6 gods immediately appeared and attacked the formation without saying a word. Chu Mingfeng's eyes tightened, and he immediately summoned the divine weapon to defend himself. Clan Chief Mo was disdainful of Chu Mingfeng's behavior. He swung his palm directly to hit the God Emperor. He didn't need his divine weapon, not to mention that he wouldn't kill him at once. Boom! A powerful force attacked Chu Mingfeng. Bang, click. The power hit Chu Mingfeng's artifact, and the artifact cracked. The power had not dissipated, passed through the artifact, and struck Chu Mingfeng's chest. Feeling that power, Chu Mingfeng felt suffocated. The power of the secret was so strong that he would run away as soon as his consciousness moved. How could Chief Mo allow Chu Mingfeng to escape? He quickly slapped another palm. Boom! Chu Mingfeng escaped the first blow, but not the second. He was slapped away by the palm and hit straight towards the formation. Boom! There was another loud noise. Chu Mingfeng hit the formation and was bounced out and fell to the ground. He instantly vomited a large mouthful of blood. Hiss, It hurts. Is this palm poisonous? A sharp pain came from his soul, more painful than the wounds on his body, and he almost fainted from the pain. Chu Minmingfeng endured the severe pain and looked at the Mo clan leader, who was smiling but not smiling. This old man was so despicable that he used poison to plot against his soul. Chu Mingfeng struggled to get up, but the leader of the Mo clan trapped him with a barrier, and at the same time he waved and punched him. These punches will not kill Chu Mingfeng, but they will make him suffer a lot. Now he is waiting for the elders from the Chu tribe to come out. How can he force the 6 elders out after beating Chu Mingfeng to death? It would not be fun if you punch someone to death. Besides, he wanted to torture Chu Mingfeng slowly, and he didn't believe that those 6 old guys could sit still and watch Chu Mingfeng being tortured. After all, he was also the direct descendant of the ancestor of the Chu clan's God Emperor realm. The 6 divine elders of the Black Ink clan attacked the formation one by one, and the Chu clan's clan protecting formation had begun to shake. If this continues, the formation will be broken without even one stick of incense. When the 6 elders in the Chu clan hall saw this scene, they dared not speak out. They didn't know what to do. Since the disappearance of their ancestor, the Chu clan's God Emperor, the Chu clan has been suppressed and bullied again and again. This kind of thing has happened to the Chu clan not once or twice. Even if they hide all the disciples, once the formation is defeated, none of them will be able to escape. The 6 Black Ink clan elders who were attacking the formation outside were all of the same strength as them. It was clear that they wanted to fight one-on-one. It's not that the 6 elders dare not go out. The Chu people no longer have the God Emperor realm to guard them. So what if they go out and fight them? They have ancestors at the God Emperor realm, so they can't compete. Going out to face them directly will undoubtedly hasten the demise of the Chu people. They pushed Chu Mingfeng out. The first person was here to find his son. He was the clan leader, and he was also the direct descendant of the ancestor of the God Emperor realm. So the Black Ink clan would be merciful. It seems that this situation is impossible. This is to destroy their Chu tribe's posture. Seeing Chu Mingfeng being beaten so badly, they were worried. The oldest elder suddenly stood up and said, "Second, third, fourth, and fifth, we should go out. After all, Chu Mingfeng belongs to the ancestor direct descendants. If we don't do something, we will be beaten to death by the leader of the Mo clan. If the ancestor comes back one day, we will not be able to explain it." The 5 elders looked at each other. They really didn't want to go out and confront the people of the Black Ink clan, but seeing that the formation couldn't last long, they had to go out if they didn't, so the 5 of them nodded bravely. Then the 6 elders' consciousness suddenly appeared outside the formation, and the 6 elders immediately started fighting with the 6 elders of the Black Ink clan. In an instant, the sky above the Chu tribe suddenly changed, and the color of the heaven and earth changed. When Patriarch Mo saw the 6 elders finally coming out, he curled his lips and looked at Chu Mingfeng, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. He stepped back and watched the show. As long as these 7 people are eliminated today, who else in the Chu tribe can stop them? From now on, the tribe of Chu people will be owned by their Mo people. The Mo clan has been coveting the Chu clan's land for a long time. They heard that the Chu clan had a piece of sacred land, so they came to that sacred land. At this time, the 6 elders of the Chu tribe are clearly outmatched. Over time, they will be defeated. Clan Chief Mo looked at the fierce battle scene in the sky with a smile, feeling extremely happy. Bang, there was a loud noise, and the great elder was photographed from the sky. He fell to the ground and made a big pit. He was already dying. At this time, a divine man flew down from the sky, stepped on the great elder's chest, and crushed him hard. Looking at the great elder, his arrogant eyes were simply arrogant, and he did not put the great elder at all. It means to take it seriously. The great elder exerted all his divine power to protect his heart and soul. His eyes widened, staring at the person who stepped on him, wishing he could tear him apart with one hand. He, the great elder, was stepped on the ground and rubbed. How embarrassed he is. Humph, the person who stepped on him snorted heavily and stepped on him with all his strength again. Crack, the great elder's chest was immediately stepped on and collapsed. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of old blood, and he immediately fainted. Just when the man was about to give birth to the great elder, a foot suddenly appeared out of thin air and kicked him into the sky. The person who flashed out was none other than Little Snake. At the same time, Yuan's family of 3 also came out. It turns out that when Yuan asked Xiaoji to find the Chu people, she saw a fight going on here. When the man was about to trample the people on the ground to death, Tianyan asked her to save them. Yuan threw the Little Snake out in desperation, followed by their family of 3. Xiao Chuling stayed in the space for Xiao Qing to watch. Tianyan looked at this scene, his eyes were red, and with a wave of his hand, a barrier covered everyone here, and he shouted, "Everyone stop it!" His roar was filled with divine power, and the people in the barrier trembled in their hearts when they heard it, and the fighting people stopped immediately. At this time, they realized that they were covered in the barrier, and they all jumped down one after another. The people from the Mo clan retreated behind the leader of the Mo clan, and the people from the Chu clan came behind Tianyan. At this time, Tianyan noticed that the person in the barrier was actually his father. He grabbed it with his big hand, and the barrier of Chief Mo broke. Tianyan waved his hand again, and Chu Mingfeng flew over. Tianyan took out a futon from the space. The futon instantly became larger, and Tianyan laid him flat on it. Seeing the injuries on Chu Mingfeng's body, he wouldn't have recognized that this man was his father if he hadn't felt his aura. Tianyan was angry. His gloomy eyes looked at the people of the Black Ink clan. He turned to Yuan and said, "Wire save people first." End of this chapter.